Hello and welcome to my studio. It's Lois here from Lois and Morgana Davidson Art, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how I painted this winter line and wash landscape. I started by looking at quite a few winter scenes online, and then with that inspiration I decided to set up this simple river scene. The little river or stream leads the viewer into the painting to the larger tree and then across the smaller trees in the middle ground and the frozen fields and then up to that beautiful blue winter sky. To start with, as always, I will draw out or sketch out my scene on my paper. I'm using a carpenter's pencil. You can get them from DIY stores or art stores, and they've got a nice wide lead, and it helps to keep me loose when I'm sketching so I don't get bogged down with too much detail. Once I've very simply sketched out my main elements, then I can go over my pencil sketch with waterproof fine liners. The fine liners I'm using at the moment are filled with Indian ink. They're Faber-Castell Artist Pip pens. I'm using a 0.5 and a chisel nibbed calligraphy pen. You can see that the structure now is revealed in the painting. The line work, of course, provides the outline, but it also provides some of the darkest darks. The white of the paper will produce the lightest lights, and the paint will mostly provide mid to dark tones. I'm going to be painting wet in wet. So first of all, I'm going to wet the whole page, maybe leaving a few little odd dry patches here and there, but nothing major. My paper is Saunders Waterford rough textured paper. It's taped to my board, and my board's at an angle of about 20 to 30 degrees. I'm looking for one of those luminous blue skies that you get in the winter, so I've mixed my blue from ultramarine, cobalt blue, a little touch of lavender and some cerulean blue. And I'll create clouds by leaving a few patches of unpainted paper, and everything should softly diffuse and give me a lovely sky. And now that my sky's finished, I'm going to move on to the land, and using paler versions, in other words adding more water to those same colours, I'm going to put a little bit of tone into the land. And now using various mixes of raw umber and raw sienna and a bit of sepia, I'm going to paint in my distant trees. And then I'll move to the foreground and add some shadows and some suggestions of texture before everything dries. I've desaturated my sky colour with a little bit of Payne's Grey to create a sort of shadowy look to the water in the stream right in the foreground, and then I'll bring some brighter watercolour in as it goes off into the distance where it's less in shadow. Keeping my brush strokes horizontal for the water keeps the water looking nice and flat. I can bring some of that blue over the riverbank and that adds a little bit of shadow. And I'm going to put a bit of shadow into these mid-ground trees. I can use a clean damp flat brush and lift out just a paler area through the shadow, just maybe to suggest a cloud shadow or something like that. If I'm not keen on that, I can always paint over that a bit later, building up some darker colour beneath it. And the next thing is just to introduce a few darks here and there and to continue working on the texture in the midground and foreground snow. So that's this first wash almost finished. I'm going to use my palette knife and just scrape a bit of texture through the damp paint. Just carefully scraping back to the white of the paper or the colour of paint that's underneath in places to continue to build up suggestions of texture. And now that I'm happy with this first layer, it's time to leave everything to dry completely. And here's the dry painting. And I'm going to start off by creating a little bit more texture in the foreground, working with wet paint onto the dry painting, so using the wet on dry technique. I'm going to use a soft mask, and by that I mean a mobile mask that I'm just going to lay over a piece of paper over the area where I don't want to get any spatter marks. And then using a fan brush and raw umber and raw sienna, maybe a bit of Payne's Grey as well, I can just tap the fan brush and using inky consistency paint produce these little spatter dots. This just adds to the texture that I've already got. And then when I've got enough spatter, I can remove the soft mask, have a little look, and then see where I need a bit more. This is a nice simple way of making sure that you don't get any spatter marks in your lovely clean sky. If you do, just dab them off very quickly with a tissue. Now I'm going to be using my size 14 round brush. It's a Skoda Perla round, and a mixture of raw sienna and raw umber, and I'm just going to drag fairly dry paint across my Linework branches for my main tree. Just build up the suggestion of all those tiny twigs around the ends of the branches, just to fill this tree out a little. I do want it looking quite sparse. I have a spare piece of paper by my easel where I test out my brush first to make sure that the paint mix is dry enough. If it's too wet, I can dab the brush onto a paper towel or a tissue to remove excess water, test it again. Because what I'm looking for is a mixture that's dry enough to scrape across the texture of this rough paper and just give me this sort of broken brushstroke effect. And I've dipped into a bit of Payne's grey. You can see I'm dropping in a slightly darker colour in places, and that's just diffusing into the lighter dry brush to give me a few shadows. Then maybe just a few little bits of dry brush over my midground trees. A little bit of shadow under the trees. So at this stage, it's just a few finishing touches for this loose painting. Minor adjustments, like putting in some slightly darker paint on those trees there, and then introducing some darker shadows to the foreground riverbank in places. And I think that's all I'm going to do to this painting. I wanted to keep it loose and fresh, and I hope I've achieved that. So let's remove the tape and take a look at it and see how it looks with its clean white border. And I'm really pleased with this. It's brighter in real life, so I'll see if I can get a better photograph of that for you in a moment so you can see how the colours look. But the line work has worked really nicely here, quite subtle, and really helps to carry the structure of the painting. And I'm very pleased with the luminosity of the blue in this sky that's been produced from ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue and a touch of lavender. And of course the unpainted paper too. I'm always very pleased when my regular or daily sky practice pays off with a lovely sky like this that really does show off the beauty and transparency of watercolour. Well, I hope you found that helpful. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It's free to do and it really helps with our reach. And many thanks to all our wonderful patrons who support us and this channel. If you'd like to support the channel, then please follow the links to either mine or Morgana's Patreon pages below. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.